Hello. Is it Starmageddon? Is it the end? How can it not be the end? Peter Mandelson, underpants, Morgan McSweeney, Jeffrey Epstein, paedophiles, bad choices. What is going on and how is he getting away with it? Still. Boris went for cake. Cake. That's what Boris went for. Bring back Boris. The scandal under Boris was Jackanory by comparison. Let's dive in. By the way, let's not bring back Boris. I didn't mean that. That just kind of fell out. Well, what a couple of days it's been. Again. Unbelievable stuff. Politics in 24, 25 and now 26 has been ridiculous. And it's been ridiculous because of Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. The adults are back in the room and all the adults are really thick. It's mental out there. It's totally mental. This is supposed to be a first world country. Well, Peter Mandelson's gone. Disgraced. Who would have thought it, by the way? The Prince of Darkness. The man with a nickname that told you everything you needed to know. So why are you so shocked by everything that's happened ever since you decided to make him the ambassador to America for Great Britain? Incredible stuff from Keir, the rules, the process, I never tell a lie, Starmer. But is it the end for the man? It seems like it should be, doesn't it? What brings Peter Mandelson, Keir Starmer, Epstein and Morgan McSweeney together? That's what I'm going to jump into now. But let's recap on what's happened.
A man who was once at the heart of British government. A power broker whose nickname was the Prince of Darkness because of his influence as a spin doctor and political fixer, is now enmeshed in a scandal that could land him in jail. On Tuesday, Peter Mandelson quit the House of Lords, the upper chamber of Parliament, after emails revealed he had a close personal relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and shared confidential government and market-sensitive information during the height of the financial crisis. Opposition parties plan to use emergency powers on Wednesday to strip him of his Lord title. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer appointed Mandelson as ambassador to Washington in December 2024, despite some knowledge of his connections to Epstein. He was removed from the post less than a year later.
So, Peter, the Prince of Darkness Mandelson, is appointed by Sir Keir the Rules Starmer as US ambassador in 2024 and is promptly sacked / resigns 1 year later because of his association with the convicted paedophile, now deceased, Jeffrey Epstein. Something that absolutely everybody knew. Anybody with Google knew when Keir, the process is king, Starmer, appointed him. And we're supposed to believe at this point that that was just a mistake and that he's very sorry. I don't buy it, and neither does an ever-growing number of the British public. And this is why. Because this is not credible, and I'm going to explain why. Keir Starmer knew all along, because Keir Starmer's chief of staff is one Mr. Morgan McSweeney, and Mr. Morgan McSweeney is a protege of Peter, the Prince of Darkness Mandelson. So not only is Keir Starmer likely to have known, his chief of staff would have known, and Morgan McSweeney is the man that we can thank for having Keir Starmer as our Prime Minister, as he was the architect of the rise of Keir Starmer and putting Labour into power in 2024. So, who is Morgan McSweeney?
So, let's start, simply enough, with that question. Who is he?
I know, the news agents are wankers, I get it. But look, Morgan McSweeney has not been a character that the right have been interested in, because they haven't really paid attention to some degree. The name has come up, we understand that he's the chief of staff, etc. But the left have always been incredibly interested in Morgan McSweeney because he has changed the Labour Party. Okay? So I've got to delve in to whatever is available to me. Okay.
He is a singular figure in British politics, I think, and certainly in Labour politics.
Patrick Maguire is a columnist for The Times, chronicler of the Starmer project, and author of the book Left Out, the definitive recent history of the Labour Party?
To answer your question literally, because this is one of the most interesting things about Morgan McSweeney, he is from a small town in West Cork in Ireland called Macroom, and from there he's undergone a pretty remarkable journey via the foothills of British politics, through some of the most unglamorous jobs in British politics, to running a country that still, I think he'd say, is not his own, even though he's lived here for best part of 30 years, raising a family here. You know, he is a singular figure in British politics for that reason. He arrived in London, like so many Irish people, at 17, on a coach from Cork, worked on building sites for a while, went to university for a little while, dropped out, wasn't a great diligent student, went to work on a kibbutz for a few years, and was moved to join the Labour Party in the late 90s because of the Good Friday Agreement.
Okay, it'd be totally unfair to make you listen and watch to all of that. You know, I had to, just to make sure that I got my story straight and understood what was going on. But you don't have to. You're my followers. You're my subscribers. I really appreciate you. That's why I'm speeding this forward. Let's get on to another bit about McSweeney, shall we?
You'll know Aggie Chambray, of course. She's on the show a lot, LBC political correspondent, and has been following McSweeney's trajectory closely. So, Aggie, if you were to describe Morgan McSweeney and his role and him personally, I mean, how would you describe him? Because obviously most people, I mean, we've been trying to find some archive of him just so that people can hear his voice, and we can't really find anything.
It's true. Peter Mandelson might be the Prince of Darkness, but Morgan McSweeney is the Prince of Silence. You can't find him anywhere. And I'm always slightly suspicious of people that are that high up in British society but still remain entirely anonymous. There's a reason for it, I'm sure.
Interesting you say that. Someone who knows him really well said to me that whenever he sees a camera, he sort of will turn his head away. So I imagine it's the same with his voice. But one of the things that I think describes him well is the fact that he is literally always on the phone. Apparently just constantly on the phone, walking around. And that's how he works. That's how he works out his ideas. That's how he works out his arguments. He has a broad spectrum of people who he speaks to a lot of the time. And he apparently doesn't write things down. He was described as someone very close to him as a bit disorganised, sometimes double books himself.
Not ideal for a chief of staff.
Not ideal for a chief of staff. They said he's now got lots of people around him, so that won't be a problem.
Doesn't write a lot down. Doesn't like a lot of traceability, perhaps.
But basically, he's just always talking to people, and those are friends, those are people he doesn't like, those are also people like John Podesta, people who've worked on other campaigns. He
like
organises,
the US Democratic
who works with Bill Clinton, always kind of finding people, reading books, listening to podcasts, and kind of trying to work out new frameworks for how to approach the solutions that he wants to get to. And apparently he is someone who he thinks about where he wants to get to and then just thinks of different creative ways to get to that point. And it doesn't matter if he gets it wrong a couple of times. For example, he obviously ran or was involved with Liz Kendall's leadership campaign, where she did very badly in 2015. And then he
Not one of his big successes.
Not one of his big successes. But if you look at that campaign, there are bits of that you then saw in Corbyn's leadership campaign. And he is someone who has just learnt, speaks to people, thinks about things. He's not a shouter, but he is funny, but can be icy. And he sort of always seems to be in control. And he has a lot of fans. The other thing about Morgan McSweeney is he has an encyclopedic knowledge of the Labour Party.
A couple of really interesting points there, wasn't there? First point, he was behind the Corbyn campaign. So, not only was he involved in Corbyn, he was involved in Starmer. That's a lot to thank one man for, but I don't think that's the most important thing that we heard. The most important thing we heard was right at the end there. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of the Labour Party. And in order to have an encyclopedia knowledge of the Labour Party, you will have to know everything about Peter Mandelson. And I mean everything, because he has been pivotal to that party since way before Blair came to power in 1997. In fact, back in 1994, it was Peter Mandelson, in deciding to back Tony Blair over Gordon Brown to be the next Labour leader, that set a little bit of a rift running, even though later on Gordon Brown had Peter Mandelson as his deputy PM. There was always a little bit of an issue there. Hence why Gordon Brown last autumn complained to the Cabinet Secretary and the senior most civil servant about the appointment of Peter Mandelson, and was completely ignored. Completely ignored. So he's been exonerated this week, and Starmer should have listened. But my point is, Morgan McSweeney is the puppet master at that level of government. He is essentially running the country alongside Keir Starmer, and he was a protege of Peter Mandelson and has an encyclopedic knowledge of the Labour Party, so would have known everything. There is no way that between McSweeney and Keir Starmer, think how often they must work together, how much time they must spend together, in each other's pockets the whole time. There is no way that between them they didn't know what was going on. They decided to appoint Peter Mandelson knowing absolutely everything. There is no doubt in my mind about that. And that's why they must both go. But don't just take my word for it.
The fact that he appointed Mandelson is a major, major blow to his authority. It shows that he has zero judgment whatsoever. Keir Starmer's finished. In political terms, he's a dead man walking. He's a lame duck prime minister, and it's just a question of time before he's ousted from number 10 Downing Street.
Hello. Well, it's looking pretty damning at this stage, isn't it? But we know Keir Starmer. We have seen endless scandal with Keir Starmer. And one of the reasons Keir Starmer, slippery Keir Starmer, stays in power is because there's absolutely nobody else to fill the void. And they are terrified. They are already stood at the end of a precipice. And if Keir Starmer goes, McSweeney goes, they will be left rudderless. Who's it going to be? Rayner, ridiculous. Streeting, interesting perhaps. Lammy, absolutely brilliantly hilarious if so. But anyway, Kemi Badenoch has been doing a pretty good job, I think, just of recent times, especially at PMQs. So let's listen to what happened at the PMQs this Wednesday. Crumbs.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The whole House will be disgusted by the latest revelations about Jeffrey Epstein. All of us want to see his victims get justice. But the political decision to appoint Epstein's close associate, Peter Mandelson, as Britain's ambassador to Washington goes to the very heart of this Prime Minister's judgment. When he made that appointment, was he aware that Mandelson had continued his friendship even after Epstein's conviction for child prostitution?
Simple question.
Mr. Speaker, let me start where I must with the victims of Epstein, and all of our thoughts are with them. Can I also say our thoughts are with all those who lost jobs, savings and livelihoods in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crash. To learn that there was a cabinet minister leaking sensitive information at the height of the response to the 2008 crash is beyond infuriating. And I am as angry as the public and any member of this House. Mandelson betrayed our country, our Parliament and my party. Mr. Speaker, he lied repeatedly to my team when asked about his relationship with Epstein before and during his tenure as ambassador. I regret appointing him. If I knew then what I know now, he would never have been anywhere near government. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, yesterday, the Cabinet Secretary, with my support, took the decision to refer material to the police. And there is now a criminal investigation. I've instructed my team to draft legislation to strip Mandelson of his title and wider legislation to remove disgraced peers. And this morning, I've agreed with His Majesty the King that Mandelson should be removed from the list of Privy Councillors on grounds that he's brought the reputation of the Privy Council into disrepute.
Mr. Speaker, I asked the Prime Minister a very specific question. Did he know that Mandelson had continued his friendship with Epstein after the conviction? He says if he knew then what he knows now, but he did know. In January 2024, a journalist from the Financial Times informed the Prime Minister that Mandelson had stayed in Epstein's house even after that conviction for child prostitution. So did the Prime Minister conveniently forget this fact, or did he decide it was a risk worth taking?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as the House would expect, we went through a process. There was a due diligence exercise, and then there was security vetting by the security services. What was not known was the depth, the sheer depth and extent of the relationship. He lied about that to everyone for years. And new information was published in September showing the relationship was materially different to what we'd been led to believe. When the new information came to light, I sacked him. But we did go through a due diligence exercise. The points that are being put to me were dealt with within that exercise. In response to the humble address this afternoon, I intend to make sure that all of the material is published. Mr. Speaker, the only exemptions are national security, if it would prejudice national security. My first duty is obviously to keep this country safe. And when we drafted humble addresses, we always put an exemption for national security. But also anything that will prejudice international relations. Mr. Speaker, you in the House will appreciate that in the course of discussions country to country, there are very sensitive issues of security, intelligence and trade which cannot be disclosed without compromising the relationship between the two countries or a third country. Mr. Speaker, so that I can be totally open with the House, I should also disclose that the Metropolitan Police have been in touch with my office this morning to raise issues about anything that would prejudice their investigations. We're in discussion with them about that, and I hope to be able to update the House, but I do think I should make that clear to the House at this point, because those discussions are ongoing.
Shall I clear that up?
No. I'm going to come to the humble address in a moment, but the Prime Minister cannot blame the process. He did know it was on Google. If the Conservative Research Department could find this information out, why couldn't Number 10? On the 10th of September, when we knew this, I asked him at that dispatch box, he gave Mandelson his full confidence at that dispatch box, not once, but twice. He only sacked him after pressure from us. I am asking the Prime Minister something very specific, not about the generalities of the full extent. Can the Prime Minister tell us, did the official security vetting he received mention Mandelson's ongoing relationship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein?
So clear. Prime Minister.
Yes, it did. As a result, various questions were put to him. I intend to disclose to this House all of them, the national security, prejudice to international relations on one side. I want to make sure...
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. The metaphorical smoking gun. Keir Starmer knew. And he knew when he appointed Mandelson that Mandelson had been in touch with Jeffrey Epstein after he was convicted as a paedophile. That, in itself, is a massive error of judgment. The sort of error of judgment we could do without at the top of British politics. It's the sort of man that would say everybody who is protesting against the murder of 3 girls in Southport is jumping on a far-right bandwagon. This man has no idea how to make a sensible judgment without imposing his own ideology, or, even worse, his own ideology alongside his own immediate sense to self-preserve. He is not fit to govern. He is not fit to be the Prime Minister of Great Britain. We have had the worst Prime Minister in my lifetime, in probably all of your lifetimes, and maybe even since time began. This is the worst Labour government ever, and this is undoubtedly the worst Prime Minister we have ever seen. It's unthinkable that you would employ a man who was friends with the most notorious paedophile on planet Earth. Now, you could say he didn't know everything. He didn't know the fact he was giving away national secrets to benefit himself and Epstein. Perhaps not. But if he's friends with a guy after he's been convicted of paedophilia, then his judgment is, of course, going to be bad. And therefore, it's a very easy decision. It doesn't matter how well networked Peter Mandelson is, he is not fit for that job. That is an incredibly important job for us, for our nation. We've put this man in Washington and said he is the man that represents his country. He doesn't represent me. He doesn't represent you. He doesn't represent anything good. Anything good whatsoever. Any man who conducts business in his underpants whilst being friends with a paedophile is not good, Keir. Not good. Like Kemi Badnoch said, it just took a cursory Google search by her research team to find out all the information he needed to know. And he didn't take the time because, ladies and gentlemen, because he wanted Mandelson in there. McSweeney wanted Mandelson in there. Now today, Keir Starmer has come forth with a pretty grovelling apology and saying he regrets the whole thing. Of course he does. But it's too late. It's way too late. The reason he regrets it is because this is the beginning of his downfall. How do we ever get ourselves into this position? Like I said right at the beginning of this video, Boris Johnson, whether you hate him or loathe him or whatever you do right now, he got sacked because he ate cake during COVID. This is astronomically 4 million times bigger than that. The Labour Party has been scandal hit, scandal after scandal after scandal. They don't represent the people of Great Britain. They represent almost anybody else, and they represent their own pure ideology, and it drives me mad. We need someone in power that is willing to represent the vast majority of British people. British people. It's not too much to ask for. And if that makes me far right, then I'll quite happily wear the badge. Well, what to say? What happens next? I don't know, actually. Keir Starmer's got away with a lot. And the way the Labour Party works, it's going to be very difficult to replace him. The members, I don't think in history the MPs have ousted, Labour MPs have ever ousted a Labour PM. So he would have to resign. And I'm not sure he will. I'm not sure he will. This is the job he's always wanted. This is the head of the rules. He's the rules maker. This is a man who's sexually obsessed with the rules and process. He is getting off on this every day. And we are being punished as a result. And by the way, when he does finally go, whenever that might be, I stand by this. Open up the tower and throw him in. Could it be the end? I don't know. Did you like this video? I hope so. If you did, please like, subscribe and share. Jump across to my Substack. Follow me on Twitter @PaulCoxComedy. Thank you very much and keep it real.